Board. Gay, 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 gay. Gay, 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 gay games, gay, 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 gay games, gay, 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 gay games, board games, board games. We're talking about board games and other things. Board games, and it starts with Bez, who will sing. Board games, board games. My name is Bez. That's me. Board games, board games. It's about frivolity. Board games, board games. They're a thing that maybe you'll enjoy. Board games, board games. And they are slightly different from toys. Hello, I am Bez, and this is the second 10 a.m. daily stream that I'm starting to do as a sort of routine. And yeah, what are we going to do? We're going to first talk about stuff that we've enjoyed recently. And hello, Alan. It's lovely to see you already. Good morning. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this, just to kind of, feel a connection to people outside the house. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, normally I'm all around. I'm maybe cycling through places. I see other people. I wave at them. I go to the shops. There's all these other people. We interact. Even if it's just a passing glance. I go to Royal Festival Hall. There's like 12 people there. We say hello to each other. Anyway, not talking about bad things. We're trying to keep it upbeat because we are blessed. And thank you very much to everyone tuning in. So we're going to talk about something that we've enjoyed recently, and if you want to join in, just feel free to chime in with anything that you've been enjoying. Then I'm going to share my brilliant thing of the week, of the day, and then think about if I've got any happy news, games I played recently, which is just yesterday because I seem to be playing games every day, and then I'm going to be answering some questions, which if you've got any questions, put them in that way. I think it's that way. Put them in the comments and I will be sure to answer them. Otherwise, I've got quite a few questions from Facebook when I announced this and I will get through all of them. So, firstly, something I've enjoyed recently. What I want to talk about is the fact, this is a bit self-serving, but I've been doing a lot of sit-ups recently and yeah, it's just like a sense of satisfaction. Is anyone else bored? Like, is anyone else finding that as time goes on, it's like, oh my God, I've got to exercise. And then you do a bit of workout, like you never thought you'd work out before. And then like in the morning, it's like, okay, I'm going to work out because what else am I going to do? I don't have anywhere to cycle to. I don't have anywhere else to travel to. I'm going to do a bit of a workout. And then later in the afternoon, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to work out again. And so, yeah, if you don't have the motivation or inclination to do that, that's totally fine. But like, I ended up, I just want to be totally self-aggrandizing and say yesterday I did 216 sit-ups. Like, I've gotten quite good at them. I did 108 in one bit and then 108 because I do them in cycles of 36. Anyway, so that's something that I'm really proud of. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed like the sense of satisfaction. And yeah, I'm really... And yeah, I want to talk about something cool that we can hopefully all appreciate. Like something cool that we can all appreciate, hopefully, is roofs and ceilings and things that don't leak. Because yesterday, at least where I was, it was raining quite a lot. And in the kitchen, we've got this kind of translucent cabinet and it's like, you hear all the pitter-patter of the rain and it's crazy, and it's like kind of almost like being in a tent, but then you're protected and you're cozy, and that's such a lovely thing. And so I just want to appreciate the fact that we are, if you're watching this, almost certainly you have a roof and walls and like somewhere that's keeping the water out, it's keeping the heat in. Let's not overlook the fundamental things that we have. Seriously, aren't buildings amazing? I mean, not amazing in that, oh my god, I can't work out how they work. I mean, it's fairly clear. Insulation, it doesn't travel as much through the walls as it does through the empty air. But still, that is pretty cool. And I think let's all appreciate the fact that hopefully we're all living in houses. And that's something that, if you're watching this, almost certainly you have. So, yeah, for houses. Now, I want to talk about happy news. Is there anyone out there that's got any happy news? I mean, I don't know why you wrote that on the list of things to talk about. I've got a little list over there on my screen, and I'm like, what news is going on? I mean, personal, let's just talk about games that I've been playing. So, I've been part of the Friday daytime playtest for quite a while now. For, I don't know, 3-4 years. No, it can't be 4 years, 3 years. But anyway, when I was in Brixton, started up this thing and said, oh, let's playtest on a daytime. Because normally all the playtests are, you know, in the evening or on the weekend. And that, back then I was working retail. And if you're working retail, if you know anything about that, well, they want more people on the evening and weekends. So it's not normal office hours. I've never worked normal office hours in my life. I mean, I'm actually trying to move towards that a little bit right now and say, okay, at 7-ish, I'll kind of stop working no matter what. But it never quite works out when you're self-employed. But so, yeah, office hours. All the Playtest UK things in London were assuming office hours. So I was like, okay, what if I just had people over to the house and we all playtested in the middle of the day? Because that's something that some people might want to do. And then that became a thing. And then we went to Royal Festival Hall. And then it became every week. And then it became like every Friday. And then, you know, it became bigger and bigger, and David Brain's there, and Kieran Symington, and Paul Mansfield, and all Fabio Piano was coming along, like all these amazing designers. And so what we've done recently is we've moved this online. So Ellie Dix, Chris Bocke, and I have been playtesting stuff, and that's what I did yesterday. So the tradition continues of Friday daytime playtesting. I mean, not for everyone, because I understand some people don't like the tech, but it continues for me at least. So yeah. Anyway, the point is that we've got these people coming together to playtest things. And what did I play yesterday? Well, we started off with a little game that I can show you on this bit of paper. It was a Rollin Rate. We tried just things in a line, and then we tried things in a little pyramid. And it's a really simple game that I'm basically just planning to give away for free. Something to keep families occupied. Basically just, it's one of the genre of have a bunch of numbers and fit them vaguely in order if you can. A mechanism that has been seen in quite a few games. You might have seen it in maths classes. You might have seen it in Welcome to Your Perfect Home. And I wanted to make kind of the simplest version of this mechanism, something that I could play with families and stuff. And I'm going to try it out today with my nieces and mum and dad and brother-in-law and two German friends who are in Hermeskeil. But that's something that I'm going to do. So that was exciting to see that it works. It wasn't a grand game. It was like, okay, I've got this idea, let's play it. Oh yeah, it works. We'll try like 4 variations. Okay, brilliant, it works. And that was potentially it's done after like an hour, which is kind of crazy, but there you go. We also played Ellie Dix's game. I'm sure that Ellie is happy me talking about her games. So this is something that we played yesterday. This is just my sheet in the red pen. So it's all about, it's a Rollin Rate that Ellie Dix made, all about managing your restaurants. Now, I should say that this is just an early prototype, and there are still tweaks to be made. There's a nice amount of planning going on, where you've got your customers in here, you get your dishes ready here, and then you've got the pass where you can hire people, and then you've got to kind of get your food across. And you're trying to do really nice customers. You want to give them the really nice food. and then the customers that are the ones or twos on the dice, you want to give them the ones or twos on the food. Like if you give them a 6, that's completely inefficient. You wouldn't do it. So that's a game that I've played about 3 or 4 times, like different iterations of. It's continuing to move towards something that continues to be better and better. And finally, we played a game by Chris Bockey, which we played on a platform called Screentime. Now, I don't know if anyone's heard of this platform called Screentime. Let me know if you have, or if you have played Screentime, what do you think of it? So it was my first time playing with Screentime. So this is kind of like Tabletop Simulator in that you can import cards, and Chris apparently took about 5 hours to get all the cards in there and get them all laid out, and you can lock things to the table so they don't move, and people move around cards. It doesn't have any inherent rules, so you need to have someone explaining how the game works, and then everyone who's playing just moves around their personal cards. It's mainly for card games. If you've got more stuff than cards, it's not really good, but Screentime is actually a really nice platform, so it's worth checking out. It's brand new, and I don't get any money from them. That's not why I'm doing it. It's just something that I've enjoyed, and maybe you'll enjoy it as well. And if you want to, and then Chris Bockey was entering this contest by a company called AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group. I think that's what it stands for. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, so that company had basically a big thing saying, oh, let's have a design contest, send us games that match this one mechanism, which the mechanism that they described was a follow mechanism as seen in, for example, Puerto Rico, where one person chooses an action and everyone else does the same thing. So they want a game which is all about that. And Chris Bockey had made a fun little space navigation game where we had like a rondel building type of thing, where the 4 actions broadly correlated to the 4 X's, like exterminate. So you had like planets, your spaceships were going around in circles, and you had multifunctional cards, which was probably a mistake. That was the big takeaway, that you needed the objectives to be one deck and the marketplace to be the other deck. From the marketplace, you kind of bought new planets. That would be your expand. Explore, you moved your spaceships around, and then you'd get those resources. Exploit, you would turn the cards around so that those planets would be more valuable. And exterminate, you would get rid of planets so that it would be almost like deck building, where you get rid of cards because you want to have the better cards in your thing. And that was a really, really nice game. I think I came second. I think it was something like 81 points to the winner, then 80 points to me. I'm sure I wrote it down. Anyway, so it was like 81, 80, 69, 68, something like that. Anyway, it was completely imbalanced. There's major changes to be made. That's always the case when you're playtesting, but it was really fun. And so kudos to Chris Bockey. Well done for making a game. And if you are interested in trying that out, then let me know and I'll pass your details on to Chris for sure. I'm sure that they would love more playtesters. And that was the bulk of what I did yesterday. Yeah, so that's the games that I've been playing. Nothing published, but yeah, just a few fun prototypes. And so what's next on the list? Okay, so talk about the questions. So thank you everyone for watching, firstly. And I am just looking through at a list of questions that I've got. So first, Robbie Munn. Robbie Munn asks, board game shops at conventions are a bit like candy stores. So many tasty things to browse over. When not looking for anything in particular, what makes you pick up a game to explore it further? Now, that's a good question. I'm going to just, oops. Let's see. So I can't have the full thing, but yeah, this is, so I guess, so it's kind of that attracts thing. I was listening to a podcast, Breaking Into Board Games, where it was one of the people, let me double check who it was because I hate crediting people wrongly. And they were talking about how they had seen think the different kinds of ways you might interact with a game. It's the IPOP system. So you've got the information, which is just, do you want to hear all about the information? The people, like, do you want to, are you there to be all about the people? The objects, like, are you just like the shiny? Are you wanting to look at it? Or pop, which is like property, but like it was renamed as T for tactile, and so it's iPod. But anyway, so T for tactile, do you want to touch it? Now, I personally, I guess I'm attracted by a combination of all four of those things. Like, as a convention, for me, it's not about the people. I go, let's talk about Cannes, because that's a convention where there's other exhibitors and I walk around, but I have a good amount of time where I am not there working. I'm just there as a consumer. And this year it was slightly different because I was looking to check out the companies. I was looking to maybe pitch something down the road. But for the most part, last year it was just, wow, I'm here in a new country. I'm here seeing new things. Woo, 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 woo. And so it was like, yeah, going out and checking it all out. And it was really amazing to see. And then I was like, so what attracted me to a game? Frankly, parts of it was just, is this going to be simple enough for me to understand it in French? Like, is looking at the game, is it simple enough? Does it look? And so I would pass over all the big Euro games, all the big meaty epic style things. Not that there's that many at Cannes Festival International de Jeux, but even going to UK Games Expo, when I think back about 2011, back when I first went to UK Games Expo, blimey, 10 years ago, this would have been the 10th year on it. Anyway, so yeah, back when I first went to UK Games Expo, I could have played, a game that was brand new, and I saw the Belgian beer race, and I could have played the Belgian beer race because, they spoke English well enough to teach it to me. I'm sure they would have been willing to teach it to me. But the point is that that's like, I don't know, 1-2 hour game. And if I'm sitting down for that, then either I guess if it's a demo and like, okay, we only do half an hour, that's one thing. And okay, maybe it's interesting to see how the game goes on, and then you get an idea of it. You get an idea, do you want to play it? But at the same time, I think it kind of takes so much time away from other things. I would almost rather go out and say, oh, wow, this crazy abstract. It's like totally new. Let me try it and play around with it for 20 minutes. And then I see something else and try that for 20 minutes. And it's like, it is like being a kid in a candy store. And so if you're a kid in a candy store, who here would rather have a big bar of one chocolate and have to make that choice when you could have like little, tiny snack, fun-sized bits of chocolates and have like everything? I mean, that's the nice thing. I mean, talking about ice cream, like this is not sponsored by Magnum or anything, but I've got the ice cream lollies, you've got the big ones, and then once you're, okay, I like that. I like the the pink one, it's called, anyway, the raspberry ones are always good. I like the double raspberry, that's a good ice cream by Magnum. But then you've got the little fun size pack, and the nice thing about that is that you can have one and then you don't have so many calories, or you could have two and you have two different flavors. And isn't two different things more enjoyable? Because I'm all about the variety. And so leaning into the notion of variety, what I like at a convention, firstly, something that I know, okay, I'm going to be able to sit down and play it for a short period of time, that I'm going to be able to fit many different things in. Secondly, something that looks different. I mean, if it's an abstract game, if it's a board and you're moving pieces around, then I probably don't want to play it. It's got to have something that's visually different. Like, I saw like something where you're kind of putting buildings onto each other and then you're rotating them and building bridges. There was another one where you've got like a giant plunger and then you're chucking things down through a two-dimensional lattice, like then you chuck it down onto the level below, so it's like a game that uses all three dimensions. And something like that, I guess there is a gimmick, and sometimes it's just, whoa, that looks so cool, like this cooperative game that I saw at Festival International de Jeu. So this is a cooperative game. I really wanted to buy it for my birthday, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to have enough people around to play it, because, you know, we'll see how things work out by that time. But I think it's for about 6-ish players minimum, and like maybe 4 players you could play it with. I think it goes up to something like 12, some quite large groups, and everyone's holding one rope, and all the ropes are attached to a wooden sort of square, and under the square is dangling a rope with a little hook on it. Now, with this hook, you've got to lift all these blocks, and all the blocks have holes in them. So basically, communally, you are like kind of moving your ropes this way so that the crane can basically move this way, and then you lower it, and maybe you slacken it a little so it can go down, hook the hook into the block, lift it up, and when you actually manage to get your first block onto another block, there's such a massive sense of achievement. It's like, hooray! And you see that, and instantly it's obvious what to do. And it's instantly obvious why this experience is completely different to anything that you've experienced before. And that is wonderful. And so, yeah, I think that being able to see that massive variety, that's something that personally gets me attracted to a game at a convention. I'm trying to think what other games, like sometimes, I'm going to be honest, sometimes it is about the track record. Like I saw Cocktail Games at their booth, and I'm like, you know what? I really like Cocktail Games. I like their stuff. I'm going to check this out. Okay, let's see this out. It's top 10. And yeah, I agree with you, Gene. Like chocolates is amazing. And I've been like having some not Cadbury's. I mean, Cadbury's is mediocre, isn't it? Can we just be honest for a second? I mean, Dairy Milk, it's good. It's like comforting. Galaxy's good. But like sometimes like I've got some so for Easter Friday, I went to Aldi. This is like the last time I've been into a big shop. I'm actually going to go again. I don't know how long it's been since Easter, about a month. It must be about something like that. I mean, it's been quite well. Anyway, so like got all this Easter chocolate, which was already half price. Crazy, never seen it happen before Easter itself. And I got like these super fancy eggs, and like there's like dark chocolate ganache in one and salted caramel in the other. That's like what I'm talking about. It's a dark chocolate, that's I prefer. Anyway, moving back to the thing, like when it's a game like top 10, it's like, yeah, I trust that company to make something good. And I'm going to say, like, I am speaking as someone who used to be like, yeah, the graphics don't matter. And to an extent, that is true. I would rather play, so Lords of Rock, I've got it here. It's a good game. I mean, it's a good game. It's mediocre. It's got like really lovely artwork. It's got like, you know, gods from Aztec and all sorts of cultures, like Greek culture, even like Cthulhu, and Egyptian, and all sorts of gods. And then they're all basically in this Battle of the Bands thing, and it's really fun visuals. And then you've got something like that's a good game, and I'm trying to think of something that's equally similar but has bad graphics. So let's talk about Hue by Chris Handy, like one of those little pocket games. That's just flat colors. But when I talk about bad graphics, I mean, those flat colors are still thought about. There's still thoughts that's gone in there. I mean, with the graphics, I feel like I want to have some clarity that, yes, this person cares about it. And then let's go to the total opposite extreme, Fruit Bandits, a game that you don't... Yeah, you look at who many... I don't know if anyone knows this game, Fruit Bandits. It was designed by Ian Vincent, who also made the Ticket to Ride India map with the Grand Tour, and also a bunch of other games. They worked on a bunch of the key games with Richard Breeze. Anyway, so Ian Vincent made this amazing game, and then they published it with JKLM, and JKLM is this whole boogeyman are no longer with us, which is like not a rest in peace situation. It's a thank goodness, because JKLM were fraudsters and shysters, and Yeah, I never met the person, but apparently it was a whole pyramid scheme where they would say, okay, we're going to go halfwards. I'm going to put in half the money for this game, and you'll put in half the money to publish your own game as a designer. And it was like, okay, it's a bit unusual, but okay, I'm going to trust you. But then what they did is they used the half the money from the next project to fund the half the money from the previous project. So it was like a whole pyramid scheme, which was really, really, yeah, corrupt and lying. I can't think of the words right now without swearing, but yeah. So that person was deceitful, unscrupulous, terrible person, and but Fruit Bandits. So Fruit Bandits, when you look at it, it's a good game, but the graphics look literally like it was made for the wrong size of box. Probably Marcus kind of just sent the wrong specs to the artist, and the artist was like, okay, here you are, and it actually looks like a bad quality JPEG. Maybe that was like the preview that the artist sent, and Marcus didn't care enough to sort it out. And with these kinds of fundamental things, and then the colors look really similar. The colors that are meant to be the same look different, and colors that are meant to be different look similar. It's really, really lousy. And that is an example of a game where the graphics actually interfere with it. And just as an example, I mean, that's obviously the worst, most egregious example, but I would still prefer to play, and I'm trying to think of a really good game. I would rather play The Mind with like terrible graphics than a mediocre game with really good graphics. But having said all that, the really good graphics are going to be the thing that makes me think, wow, this company cares about this game. This company cares. This is something that looks cool. It looks fun. This is the atmosphere that they're going for, because it's all about, it's kind of is about what you get on the box, isn't it? And then Alan asks, about my own games, how much of the design of the packaging or box is focused on the candy store aspect? And frankly, this is something that's increased. Sorry, I didn't realize that had gone back. So this is something that I've thought about more and more as time has gone on. So if you look at my first game, so I've got it right here in a bind. So I try to attract people. I mean, it's not to everyone's tastes, the graphics, but I'm trying to express this is what it is. And it's in a bind, it's in a bind, it's in a bind. And there's a barcode because that's legally required. No, it's not legally required, I'm lying. Or mistaken. It's so that it can be sold in places. And I do have some bump that makes people maybe think, wow, this is really good. I say it's the best party game of physical constraints, and I still stand by that. You have pictures of the cards, which is so important, and then it's like a little bit about it. But really, all this stuff, the CE mark, the PG-13, like, which shouldn't be on a game anyway, but like that should have been here on the legal side. Now, let's look at Kitty Cataclysm, which is, this is not a good example of a box. It's got Kitty Cataclysm. It looks different. I'll give it that. So there's all the cats, but I'm going to completely redesign this quite soon. And then it's got my logo, stuff by Bez. This game is chaotic. You can be a dick to your friends and family. I'm probably going to change that to you can be mean to your friends and family, or you can get your claws out. I don't know. There are many cat puns. You need to think about what cards to play. That's pretty much the entire game. And so here I've got the barcode, the contents, and why do I have the contents? Why do I have the barcode? Why do I even have the logo? Is that anything that anyone wants to see? I would be better off putting it on one side. And actually, I realized that in future, the way I'm going to have my games is name, vital info, name, vital info, in case you want to have it standing up, name, I don't know if there will be space for the vital info, and then legal bump. Then it will be up that way, and this will be bigger, and I should have had space for the cards, because it's about showing people that you care. Even though it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, you kind of need to show that you care. And it's also about what does the game look like on the table. I mean, that is a thing to think about. With cards, like I'm obviously quite it's not as eye-capturing as, you know, a rope-assisted crane like we were talking about. It's controlled by 12 people where they're picking up this thing with a hook. And indeed, I don't think that even Yogi is as different or memorable an experience as this crane thing. But on the other side, like the crane thing is a lot more expensive. I think it was like 150 euros, something like that. But you know, I'm still getting it for my blooming birthday because it's my birthday. I mean, I deserve to buy one really nice thing here, and then you're going to remember that. And having some sort of toyetic factor, that is something that's going in more and more board games, whether it is a randomization situation, whether it is like that moment of reaching into the bag and putting it down. That's like the unique moment, whether it's a big spinny thing in wavelength, whether it's like you know, people drawing things, like being able to say, okay, this is what the game's about, and then it can even transpose itself to more involved games. Like, let's look at diplomacy, the moments where people are huddling off in different groups, or Shogun, the moments when the cubes come rattling out of the thing. In Energy Empire, the fact that you're caring about not polluting, but then you've still got the economic engine in building, and the fact that there is a style of game, and I think that more and more you can get games where everything has been seen before and it's put together in a really nice way, but I've seen all of it before. And for me, maybe like 8 years ago when I was first getting into board games, that would be great. And I would love it. And sometimes it's really nice just having a really nice set of iterations on stuff. But for me now, that's not what I want. I want something a little bit different. And so I hope that I've kind of, explained that a little bit. So next we've got a question from Stuarts Green. Now, Stuart asks, this was on the Facebook, and if I add that, may I ask why 10 a.m. though? So this was back when I was announcing that, okay, this is a thing I'm thinking of starting tomorrow, and Stuart said, sounds great, why 10 a.m.? And I just want to address this. Why am I doing this? Why am I here? I mean, not in the grand scheme of things, just why am I sitting here right now? Well, mainly it's because I want a routine, because right now I am missing the sense of a routine. I want to get up in the morning and feel, okay, that's the thing that I have to do. I mean, I was starting to play games with family around like 11:30, but I don't want that to be like the thing that's, okay, I'm getting up and that's what I have to do. That should be like a time when we chill out and we relax, even though it's like via video, like that. And I want to have, okay, I get up and I'm talking and I'm doing something. I want to have something to get my brain started. I want to have some time for brainstorming potentially. I want to be able to have someone say, hey, what's about a game for that? And like maybe as the time goes on, we'll designate each day to be like different categories or different things. It might be that sometimes it's about a particular game. Like yesterday, it was vaguely about that game Elementos, and another day I might be reviewing some other game, maybe a game that I actually like more. I'll pick them vaguely randomly. Maybe I'll review my own game, who knows? And maybe one day I'll be talking about, hey, here's some ideas for a thing, how can I turn that into a game? And you'll watch me literally brainstorm an idea as a main thing and try to turn it into a game. And maybe have guests on sometimes and get that conversation going and feel energized in the morning, because that's the thing that I love to do, just ramble and blether. And it's also about everyone else. So basically, the reason it was 10 a.m., if it was, I'll just read out what my reply was. Basically, I wanted it to be a bit more morning routine, considered earlier, but I didn't normally get up until slightly after 10 a.m. today, I'm glad to say, I've gotten up early enough that I even had a shower this morning. So yay me. I was thinking, 10 a.m. It's terrible for US folk, but it's good for us European folk as well as Thailand, Australia, whatever. And so that is why 10 a.m. And I can. So, yeah. Next question. Claire Payne had a whole bunch of questions. So the first question, and then I'll maybe have a Claire Payne question of the day constantly. I don't know. So from Claire Payne, your games are great to play. Thank you very much, Claire. This is just me copy and pasting the entire question. They seem very inclusive. Oh, thank you. Is this something you have to really work hard to do, or is it something you find quite natural? I think that as you do something more and more often, as you do something regularly, it's inevitably becomes more natural. I mean, so I've been trying to use gender neutral language, and just because it's like you don't want to meet someone and make an assumption: are they a he or a she, or are they non-binary, and or are they exempt of gender. I mean, I know that Fi prefers to be called it, like that is its favorite pronoun. But anyway, the point is when you're meeting someone, until you've been explicitly told, hey, my preferred pronoun is X, I think that making the assumption for one of the gendered options is a really potentially damaging thing to do compared to just assuming, okay, I'm going to not assume anything. I'm not going to ask literally everyone. I'm just going to use they until something else hasn't been indicated. And I try to use they for everyone right now. And that was really difficult to start off with. But as you do it more and more, as you are consciously doing this, it becomes easier and easier, and it becomes like a pattern. Now, in the same way, in a bind, my first game, it wasn't always a simple game. Just to like tell you about the story of In a Bind, in case you've not heard it, I'll try to explain it fully. In case you have heard it, I'll try to be quick or add some extra detail. I don't know. So it started off when I was coming to London, and then I started making a whole bunch of games, and I was trying to design things. And then my first game was like a hex chit game, and you kind of moved little wizards around, and then you made spells and all sorts of things. And then my next game was something actually themed around Kickstarter, which this was when I found out about Kickstarter. I was like, oh, this is so amazing. I'm going to have some people pledging for some projects and some people trying to make some projects, and then you get victory points if the projects that you make other people happy, and you also get victory points if the money that you spend that project lines up with what you were hoping for. And so I felt like I needed a little bit more time and experience in the world of Kickstarter. Like I felt, okay, I need to Kickstart a few games before I do that. And I've never actually gone back to it. Maybe I should one day. Anyway, so like one of the other games that I kept coming back to this Playtest UK thing every month, because back then it was only once a month, which wasn't very much, but it soon became twice. Anyway, so like I had a game there was a game by Danish Frank, a game where it was completely unfair cards. You might grab cards out of someone else's hand. Everyone had their own unique score pile, and there was one card that if you played it, it would completely end the game and you would win. But because it had a different back, if it was about to get to your turn, the person to your right would steal it from you, and it never got played. But then what happened is, if it ever got to the end of the pack, then the game would instantly end, and you would count up how many points were in everyone's score pile. And that was the thing that I was like, oh, that is a really cool idea. I'm really excited to see where it goes. And then Danish Frank moved away, and I've never seen them since, and that's sad. Anyway, so I messaged Danish Frank. I said, hey, I'd really like to make a chaotic game vaguely based on this one idea that you had. Would you be okay with that? And Danish Frank never replied. So, ideas aren't... Morally, I felt okay about it. And then I made a game which was all about passing cards and stealing cards from other people. And if you ever had too few cards, then you might lose. If you had too many cards, you might lose. And if you had a certain number of, there was like some cards with different backs. And then you might notice that a lot of these aspects were Cataclysm. But then in that first playtest, there was one card that was way overcomplicated. Now, just to give an example of, how complicated my games were, this card said something like, this is not verbatim, by the way, stand up. If you ever sit down, give this card to another player. End of game, 10 points. So basically, this card was enough to swing the game into a victory, but you had to stand up for the entire game if you played it. And someone said, hey, you've got this one card that's physical and all these other cards that are about moving cards around. Why do you have this dichotomy? If you want to make a physical game, make a physical game. And then even when I was starting to make a physical game, it wasn't simplified. It was like at the start, everything had a points value. Everything was like crazy, like almost mini game in itself. Like there was everyone run around the table. The first person to sit back in their seat gets to draw a card. Oh, everyone keep making a noise. The last person to stop making a noise gets this card, which is worth 5 points at the end of the game. Things like that. And every card you played was like something really crazy and a game in it and of itself. Until I had some cards that were saying things like, okay, you must, this player must always touch their hand to their nose. If they ever stop doing this, I can't remember what's happened if they stopped back then. Player elimination wasn't a thing. But then the point is, it took work. It took so many playtests until I said, hey, wait, maybe I should just simplify it. Maybe I should simplify it even further. Maybe I should. And eventually I got to what's nowadays called a sadistic mode. And in Yogi, if you look, there's a sadistic mode where everyone's got 2 cards. They give a card to someone else that other person has to do. And then that victim gives a card to someone else, and it could pop around like popcorn. And then it was someone else, Forrest Bauer, who said, hey, I've played this in my school, but we completely changed the rules. We just drew a card, did what it said, and went around the table. And I was like, that doesn't sound like much of a game. I mean, you're not making any decisions. Would that be enough of a game? And then I tried it. Lo and behold, it was funny. I mean, obviously, like nowadays, Yogi, this is the French version, and it's in loads of different languages. That sold fairly well because it is funny and because it's simple and because it's literally just draw a card, read it aloud, do what it says. But it took me, I would say, about 2 years and a lot of outside input to get to that stage. Now, it was when I went back years later, I think it was 2016, when I'd just, middle of 2016, end of 2016, I'd just sold Yogi, licensed it to Gigamic, and I was like, yeah, that's other avenue. Like, if I turned it into a semi-strategic, not really strategic, really chaotic card play, then what would happen? And then I used my new intuitions, let's say it. I used my new knowledge that sometimes a really simple thing is still enough. And I think that to an extent, that's about confidence. Like, you want to say, hey, a game doesn't need to be a big flashy thing. Like, let's talk about this game that I made. Like, this is not meant to be a game that anyone buys. It's literally going to be a game that I write the rules for, and it's played by a bunch of families. You've just got a bunch of cards that say 1 to 22, and then you try to put them into 15 squares, and then at the end, you get the length of each thing, plus your longest is doubled. And so it's easy enough that I've explained it right now, and if I've not explained it, if you've not understood it, hopefully you will understand it within a couple of minutes, and it takes 5 minutes to play, which is really nice for a simple game. And there was a temptation to say, hey, maybe you could have a lot more going on. Maybe you could have like this was more interesting for us, but that was not for the target audience. The target audience is like my nieces, 6-year-old nieces. Do they not deserve a game? And constantly keeping myself in check, saying this could be enough. I don't need to make it more and more complicated. That in itself could be enough. Now, so yeah, in conclusion, I know I've rambled quite a bit. No, it's not something that I found quite natural, but I find increasingly natural now. So, John Stephen Richard Power. I know that name, John Power. JP, I think we used to call you. Good morning to you too. Can you talk a bit about emotional journeys in games? I think I once heard you refer to this and was curious to know more. Pardon me, just in case you're curious, water with effervescent multivitamin. Anyway, so emotional journeys in games, I guess maybe I'm trying to work out what John's referring to. Maybe it's the ludological narrative arc, like the so yeah, and hey again, JP. I think we know each other from the Friday daytime playtest that I was talking about earlier. So if you want to kind of give me an indication of what you mean by that, because I'm drawing a little bit of a blank. I mean, there's two ways that I could take this question. The first is designing for experience. I mean, I guess firstly, you've got to talk about, is this a game that makes you go, or is it a game that makes you laugh? Or are you trying to do something that's a bit more difficult? Are you trying to make a game that makes people scared? Are you trying to make a game that's, okay, we're working together? Or are you trying to make a game like, okay, we're trying to work together, but we're limited by ourselves, but we can overcome all these struggles? And maybe that's the mind, or maybe it's pandemic, but each way it's got like slightly it's a similar emotional goal, I guess. Like you could say, okay, I'm going to make a game where we are cooperating, sorry, but or can we trust each other? Is there a traitor amongst us? And maybe that goes into Dead of Winter, or maybe it goes into Saboteur. Two very different things. So the other, if you're doing that, and JP says designing for experience angle, but also the ludological narrative arc, I think that designing for experience, again, breaking into Boardgames' latest podcast, really nice. Listen to that. I can't remember who recorded it. It was one of the three regulars there, but it's a really nice one about the iPod system, which I talked about earlier, so I won't repeat myself, at least not within the same hour. I might repeat myself tomorrow, who knows? So, well, I'm just talking about not repeating myself, so maybe I have repeated myself within the same hour. So, with the narrative arc, you've got, well, you don't have to think about anything, but so let's talk about Game Yogi, because I've just been recording not so long ago. And so Yogi, you draw a card, it says do this thing. So it might say finger touching ear, then it might say finger touching nose, then two hands touching, then this card on top of this hand. And each turn you still need to draw a card, then you've got to read it aloud. It might say this card on shoulder, and then you've got to get that card on top of your shoulder somehow. And now it's even harder because now you've got to get that. And then now let's say this card, this imaginary card says this card on top of, oh my God, how can I get that? And every time it gets harder and harder. And so it's like an escalation of challenge. It's like, okay, we're getting harder. And it's not that it, I mean, if you look at an old style video game, like look at it, you've got, okay, you've got this kind of difficulty curve. So you go up within a level, and then for the boss, it spikes a little bit, and then it drops down, and then then it kind of spikes, because the boss is meant to be like a high point. If it just went straight up, I'm going to hypothesize that that would not be as exciting. You do want to have moments that are like, oh my God, there's a complete difference. There's a switch in what we're doing. I'm proud, although it's been many years and there's a lot of things I would do differently. if you've got nothing better to do, or if you like puzzle games, or if you like playing games online, maybe check out Exorbis 2. I'm just going to so EXORBIS numeral 2. So that's a game that I co-created. Yeah, the article. So just by the way, let me ask you, would you prefer me to type stuff up and put it into the comments, or should I put it up on screen? Because I do have the ability to put up off screen. And the podcast, which someone said they didn't hear, is called Breaking into Board Games. And the game that I am now talking about is called Exorbis 2. So Exorbis 2 is a game that I made. And I want to talk about that very briefly, wherein Exorbis 2, every 10 levels, it went up in difficulty, and then level 11, there was a massive drop. And but within that drop, there would be a new style of gameplay introduced. So like first level, it was just about the moving things. Like the level 11, it might have been, okay, now you need to push things as well. Level 21, oh, now we get turny things, I don't know. But every kind of set of 10 levels kind of had its own theme. And this broke up the game. This gave it variation. This gave it a sense of progression. And you want to give it a real sense of progression, because if in turn, it's the same with a board game. I mean, that's a video game, Exorbis 2, but with a board game, it's the same. If I'm doing the same thing on the 50th minute compared to the 5th minute, then why the hell are there these 45 minutes in between? I want to have some sense of escalation. And maybe it's the same thing has just been built and built and built. Like on Go, at the start, you're placing your stones and you're feeling out the board. Okay, starts off with, okay, I'm claiming that corner very broadly. You might win if you actually do well. Okay, I'm claiming this corner very broadly. And then you claim things very broadly. And then you have a little knife fight here. And then you have a little knife fight here. And then they maybe start linking together. And then we have a denouement at the end where you kind of finalize putting out all the pieces together. And so the other thing that I wanted to talk about, let's talk about a game like Diplomacy or Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones, the board game where it's kind of like Diplomacy, where we're backstabbing each other and everything. And within that game, yes, the mechanisms are the same, but it's an intricate web of deceit and lies and backstabbery and trust and all these other things. And so by the time you are in the 5th minute, yes, you're doing the same thing in a way, but for the 45th minute, then you've got all this added layers because, oh my God, if I do this, then that's kind of involving that person in that territory, and the kind of network of area control has gotten more complicated. But not only that, but it's the network of lies and deceit and trust and negotiations and democracy or diplomacy. And that is a thing that escalates, and it continues to escalate. And so you can see it there as well. Let's talk about a game that does not have this at all. Let's talk about The Big Taboo, because it's on the side of my table. Yeah, that's just a game that I've got there because I sometimes play it on live stream. And the thing about The Big Taboo, the thing about that game, or Pictionary, or whatever, these kinds of party games, the nice thing about them is that anyone can join in at any moment and anyone can leave at any moment. So by compartmentalizing them, that means that they're not the atom of the game. Yes, the part of the game that you need to play to completely understand the game might be as short as 5 minutes or even less. For The Big Taboo, the atom of the game, the part that you need to join in to meaningfully take part and engage with the game, might be as short as 1 minute. Like, frankly, you could sit down, play, have a guess with some other people and say, oh, I need to go to the toilet. And that's completely all right. People can carry on playing while you're in the loo or getting yourself some food or drink or whatever. And that's an advantage of party games. But that is a decision for them to make. and that is a genre that I'm not against. I have had a lot of fun with, for example, yeah, I'm struggling with even Say Anything. Like, okay, the Atom's a little bit longer there. It might be as much as 2 minutes or something, but that's a really fantastic game. Same as Witches and Wagers. I mean, in theory, yes, you have the bidding at the end, and yeah, in theory, Say Anything. It's more about individuals playing the whole game rather than teams, but you get what I mean. Whereas look at another lights game. Look at The Mind, which is just here because I was using the cards yesterday. Or look at Avalon and Resistance. Both of these games are very simple. Both of these games have lovely streamlined rules, but still, over the course of the game, something is changing. In The Mind, it's purely that each level you get more and more and more cards. In Resistance Avalon, it's like, okay, you've got all the information from before, you're using that same information to deduce something, and the Atom is the entire game. And look at Wibble, the previously eponymous game for the Wibble Plus Plus deck, which is now the L deck. So Wibble, as you score more and more, you get more and more cards, making it more and more difficult for you. And that gives you a ludological arc. It gives you a sense of, oh, I managed to do this. Oh, now we're on to the next round. Okay, all the cards that I've managed to gather, okay, they're gone. Phew, I get a sense of relief. And it's like that building and relief. Basically, I would say it. I mean, I'm no expert at this, and I'd probably have to ponder a little bit before I wanted to say anything of value, but off the cuff, ways to establish a ludological arc. Like, firstly, you've got building an increasing web, like that increasing complexity with the same framework, which is seen in diplomacy, in resistance, or even risk. The second option, have increasing options, which you might actually see in something like Kalis, or also in Agricola, where more and more actions come out as the game goes along. The other thing, have more kind of change the rules for personally for over success, or just having different challenges that are not all streamlined and along a certain difficulty. Going back to the Big Taboo, one nice thing that it does, and like other games have also done this, is that it doesn't just have the one thing. So the Big Taboo is not just Taboo. The Big Taboo also has like a drawing ground, which is basically Pictionary, and has like classic Taboo. It's got like using as few words as possible, 15 words, drawing it, and bending and twisting with Bob, which is an actual like little cuddly toy, which is kind of like charades, but then you've got this little cuddly toy, which is quite cute. And I'm going to show you just because. And so you'd go, okay, what am I doing? And you'd kind of have to do a bit of puppetry. But that gives it a bit of variance, and that variance is a form of ludological arc because there are spikes, because it's not just a streamlined path, because easy is boring, because you don't want to just have homogeneity over the whole game, because if you do, then what's the blooming point? And so, yeah, I want to say we're getting to 10:58. This is about when I want to finish up these shows. Thank you very much. Thank you, John and Alan, for commenting along. It's been really lovely kind of seeing here and interacting with you. I mean, that's the other thing, like I mentioned previously, just kind of wanting to do it. And tomorrow, I think it's going to be another kind of listener question thing until we'll see how the format works. This is just a thing that I'm trying. Oh, I should actually link to my Kickstarter because, I mean, I should get better at promoting myself. So if you do want to check out my Kickstarter, I am just sending that message, and I'm going to share a screen, if I can, of cat puns. Allow. Oh, why can I not allow it? Okay. So you can see that if you like these sorts of pictures, a catalogue, Cat's Ass Trophy, Cat Cheer, Catch, Pyramid Scheme, The Cat Burglist, and now Catnap are all available as stickers, and you will be able to get 14 stickers for £2 posted to you within the UK, or if you're outside the UK, you'll need to pay postage and shipping, but you can buy multiple stickers to make it worth it. Go and check it out, please. If you want to speak to me, then I am Bez. On Twitter, I'm Stuff by Bez. On Instagram, I'm Stuff by Bez, STUFFBYBEZ. You can email me, stuffbybez@gmail.com, if you have anything to say. I don't promise to get back to you. I'm finding it quite challenging to write right now, which is why I'm doing this instead. My website is stuffbybez.com. My shop is stuffbybez.bigcartel.com. And Facebook, search for Stuff by Bez, or it's facebook.com/thingsbybez, because Facebook doesn't let you have the F and the B next to each other in a URL. Now, I will be back here, like on your screen, wherever your screen is. I'm kind of trying to point, so I might see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Until now, I guess all we've got to do is say bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye.